Have you ever felt like you were living in someone else's shadow? Like no matter how hard you tried, you just couldn't earn the love and respect you deserved? This is a story about just that. A story of loss, betrayal, and ultimately, triumph. A story where those who thought they held all the cards were left utterly speechless. If you believe in karma, if you believe that kindness and resilience will always prevail, then this story is for you. I know you're a good person, and that's why you're here. So, please show your support. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, and tell me your city in the comments. Let's build a community that believes in the power of good. The rain wasn't a gentle whisper that day. It was a furious roar. It was as if the heavens themselves were weeping. I stood outside the cemetery gates, completely drenched, my fingers clutching the single white lily I'd managed to rescue from the trampling crowd. Each raindrop felt like another icy finger tracing its way down my skin. My breath hitched in my chest, coming out in ragged bursts of cold air. Nearby, under a black umbrella, stood Serena, my stepmother. Her arms were linked with her two sons, Damien and Julian. They were a united front of disdain. Not once did she turn her head in my direction. But her voice carried through the downpour, sharp and clear. I took a step forward, wanting to say my final goodbye to Dad. Serena spun around, her eyes flashing with anger. Her lips twisted into a sneer. "Don't you dare come any closer, Alara." She spat my name out like a curse. "You meant absolutely nothing to him. You weren't even his blood." A wave of shock rippled through the small gathering. Some people looked away, their faces etched with discomfort. Others stared directly at me, their eyes filled with a pity that felt like another blow. But I didn't cry. Not then. Not for her. Not for any of them. I simply nodded, my throat tight. I cast one last look at the closed casket, at the man who had once lifted me onto his shoulders so I could almost touch the stars. Then I turned and walked away. I walked back to the parking lot, the rain relentlessly pounding the pavement. My clothes clung to my body, heavy and cold. My hair plastered to my face. I got into my old, battered car, shut the door, and then, for the first time that day, I broke. My entire body shook as I gripped the steering wheel. My chest felt like it was in a cage, a silent scream trapped within. He was gone. My stepfather, technically, but the only real parent I had ever known. And now, he was just ashes and legalities, erased from my life by a woman who had never accepted me. I forced myself to pull it together when I saw the text message. "Mr. Harrison's will is being read tomorrow at 10 a.m. at Benton and Greenlaw offices. You are requested to attend." Requested, not invited. Not welcomed. But I would be there. Even if I had to stand at the back. Even if I had to listen to Serena gloat about how she now owned every inch of his world. I wouldn't let her erase me. Not from his story. Not from mine. The next morning, the law office reeked of polished wood, old money, and an overdose of ego. Serena sat in the front row with her lawyer and her two smug sons. She was dressed in a designer dress and adorned with pearls that hadn't belonged to her yesterday. I recognized them instantly. Dad had bought them for my birthday dinner last year because I'd admired them in a store window. Serena's eyes met mine just as I stepped into the room, and she let out a laugh that was more like a snort. "Oh, she came," she whispered to her lawyer, loud enough for me to hear. "Isn't that brave of her?" I didn't respond. I simply took a seat 2 rows behind them. The room fell silent when Mr. Thompson, Dad's longtime attorney, entered. He was a man in his 60s, his gray hair neatly combed, glasses perched on his nose, and his eyes weary from years of witnessing families torn apart over money. He cleared his throat. "This will was updated 6 months ago by Mr. Jonathan Harrison." Serena perked up, her sons mirroring her eagerness. They leaned forward slightly. "To my wife, Serena," Mr. Thompson continued, pausing to scan the document, "I leave my sincere wish that she finds happiness and the beach house in Cape Cod." A flicker of surprise crossed Serena's face. "The beach house? That was it?" Mr. Thompson continued, "To my stepsons, Damien and Julian, I leave my vintage car collection." Use it wisely, boys. Don't wreck them like you wrecked your last chances. The room shifted, a few nervous chuckles breaking the tension. Her son's smirks faltered for a moment. Then Mr. Thompson looked up, his gaze settling on me. To Alara Hayes, the girl I raised as my own from the age of 7. The room froze. Every eye was on me. I leave all remaining assets, including my shares in Harrison Tech, my personal savings, stocks, investments, and primary residence. She is to be the sole executor of my estate and my chosen successor in all family trusts. The glass Serena was holding slipped from her hand, shattering on the hardwood floor. She stared at the lawyer, then at me, her lips parted in disbelief. This has to be a mistake, she finally choked out. She's not even his real daughter. Mr. Thompson remained calm, his voice steady. This will was recorded on video. Would you like us to play it? Silence. Complete silence. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. I stood up, my voice surprisingly steady. No need. I already know what he thought of me. Serena opened her mouth, her eyes wild, but no words came out. Only a sharp inhale. Outside the building, I sat in my car again. But this time, my hands weren't shaking. The rain had stopped, and sunlight was beginning to break through the clouds. It wasn't revenge, it wasn't gloating, it was just peace. But this wasn't the end. Not even close. The real storm hadn't even begun. Because inheriting everything from a man you loved, while being hated by everyone else who wanted it, is never a happy ending. It's just the beginning. The days that followed were a blur of silence and simmering tension. I stayed off social media, but my phone still buzzed constantly with messages I didn't want to read. You're disgusting. Hope you're proud of stealing from your family. Rot in hell, gold digger. These weren't from strangers. They were from Serena's circle. My stepmother's friends, her cousins, her son's girlfriends, even people I barely knew. They all felt justified in sending hate because the narrative Serena had spun was already deeply rooted. They didn't know that he had taught me how to run the company. That while they were at charity galas sipping champagne and taking selfies, I was in his study, helping him restructure investments, preparing quarterly reports, reviewing project blueprints. He didn't choose me because of pity. He chose me because I earned it. The first time I walked into Harrison Tech headquarters as its new acting chairwoman, the air grew thick with tension. People paused mid-conversation. Some stood a little straighter, others averted their eyes. Serena had been spreading rumors here too. I heard the whispers as I passed. Isn't it the girl he adopted or something? Didn't she get kicked out of the funeral? She's just some secretary. How can she run a tech empire? I kept walking, my head held high. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt longer than usual. When the doors opened, the senior board was waiting, 12 men and 2 women, most of them older than me by at least 2 decades. They didn't clap. No warm welcome, just cold nods. Mr. Grayson, the acting CEO in my father's absence, stood up. Miss Hayes, we expected someone more experienced. His tone was polite, but the condescension dripped from every syllable. I set my folder down on the table. And I expected a company that's not 6 weeks away from breaching a major vendor contract. I replied calmly. He blinked, clearly taken aback. I flipped open the folder and slid the papers across the table. You've got an operations bottleneck in the Shenzhen partnership. You've delayed payments twice. If we don't fix this now, we'll lose exclusivity on the new chipset, which means the South Korean firm swoops in. One of the board members leaned forward, his eyes widening slightly. I nodded. Exactly. My father didn't raise a fool, and I'm not here to be your puppet. For the first time, the silence in the room gave way to genuine interest. That night, I visited his study. Our study now. The one room in the house Serena never touched because it smelled too much like spreadsheets and cigars. I lit the lamp on the desk. Its warm glow wrapped around the dark wood like a familiar embrace. His chair still held the shape of him, as if time hadn't quite caught up yet. As I opened the locked drawer on the right, his private drawer, I found a letter. My name was on the front in his handwriting. I opened it slowly. Alara, I know you'll read this when I'm gone. If you're holding this letter, It means I trusted you more than anyone. You were always more than a stepdaughter. You were my compass, my reason. Take the company, protect it, grow it, and don't let the noise drown your heart. They'll try to tear you down. Don't let them. You're stronger than you think. Tears filled my eyes, not just out of sadness, but because I needed to hear those words more than anything in that moment. The next morning, I received an unexpected call from Mr. Thompson, the lawyer. There's one more clause in the will, he said. It only activates if Serena contests the will, which she did publicly. My heart raced. What clause? I asked. A video message. Jonathan recorded it specifically to address the matter, if it came to this. Would you like to view it alone? I stared at the floor for a moment.
No, I said.
I want her to see it. I want the world to see it. 2 days later, the entire Harrison Tech auditorium was filled. The board, the senior team, media reps, and yes, Serena and her 2 sons seated in the front row with their usual smug expressions. The screen flickered to life. And then there he was, my dad, in a blue sweater, seated in the same study I had cried in just days before. His voice was steady and calm. If you're watching this, Serena, it means you tried to take what wasn't yours. And if Alara is in that room, it means she fought her way through it all. Serena shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her eyes darting around the room. You married me for comfort, Dad continued. I knew that, but I let you stay because I thought you might grow to love Alara like I did. You didn't. You bullied her. You excluded her. And when I got sick, you only got crueler. Murmurs echoed across the room. Someone gasped. So I made a choice. One I do not regret. Alara is my legacy. And if anyone doubts that, maybe you should ask yourself why she was the only one who visited me in the hospital after the 3rd surgery. The screen went black. Silence. Heavy. Complete. And for once, Serena had absolutely nothing to say. But I wasn't there to humiliate her. I wasn't there to rub it in. As everyone began to file out of the auditorium, I approached her slowly. She didn't look up at me. I'm not going to fight you anymore, I said softly. You can keep the beach house. I've already decided to convert the estate's assets into a scholarship fund for girls who never get the chances I got. You'll be credited as part of the founding family. No one needs to know anything else. She finally looked up, her mascara smudged, her hands trembling slightly. Why? She whispered. Why would you do that? Because he wouldn't want me to become what you were to me, I replied. The press called me the quiet storm, but I didn't care about titles. I cared about carrying his name with dignity. And in doing so, I found peace and purpose. 3 weeks later, I sat across from a business tycoon who used to dismiss me as the intern who tagged along with Jonathan. Now, he poured me tea himself. His tone was careful, polite, slightly nervous. Miss Hayes, you've managed to triple investor confidence in less than a month. That's impressive. I gave a slight smile. It's Alara, and I didn't do it alone. It wasn't about revenge. It never really was. It was about restoration, respect, balance. But that balance came with a price. I returned home one evening to find a box at my doorstep. No note, just an old cardboard box with duct tape on the sides. Inside were photographs from years ago. Photos of me with my father, laughing at the lake house, blowing out birthday candles, hugging him on the porch after a college rejection letter. And one letter, written in shaky handwriting, from my grandmother, Dad's mom. We hadn't spoken in years. She'd never accepted Serena as his wife. She left when I was 13. Sweetheart, the letter read, your father wrote to me often, told me everything. I wasn't there for you, and I carry that burden. But I want you to know he loved you like blood. He told me you saved him more than once when the pain got too loud. I wasn't brave enough to stand by you then. I hope these pieces of him bring you the warmth I couldn't. My hands shook. My knees buckled. I sat on the floor and finally let myself sob. Tears that hadn't found release at the funeral, the will reading, or even the victory. Because finally it hit me. This wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about grieving, about letting go. That weekend, I drove to the small, crumbling house where Serena now lived. She had moved out of the estate days after the video was played. She opened the door, surprised to see me. She wore no makeup, and her voice was rough. "What are you doing here?" she asked. I held up the envelope. "There's something I want to return." Inside was a photo of her and my dad on their wedding day. He looked young, hopeful. She looked radiant and genuinely happy. She stared at it for a long time. "Why bring this?"
she asked.
"You could have burned it or thrown it away." "Because he loved you once," I said gently. "Even if it didn't last the way you hoped, that part of his life deserves to exist." Tears welled up in her eyes. She blinked rapidly, clearly overwhelmed. "I was awful to you," she whispered. "And I won't ask for forgiveness, but thank you for this." I nodded. "I'm not here to rewrite anything, just to stop the bitterness from spreading." That's what he would have wanted. Weeks passed, then months. I started a mentorship program for underprivileged girls who wanted to enter tech. We called it the Harrison Initiative. Every time I stepped into a classroom filled with hopeful eyes and nervous smiles, I felt something inside me shift. I wasn't just protecting his legacy anymore. I was building mine. One afternoon, while visiting a school, a girl around 12 tugged on my sleeve. "Are you really Alara Hayes? The one who owns that giant company?" I crouched down to her level and smiled. "I help run it, but I'm also just someone who lost her dad and didn't know who she was without him." She nodded solemnly. "I lost mine too. Do you think they still see us?" I swallowed hard. "Yeah, I think they do. Especially when we're doing the things they'd be proud of." She hugged me tightly. And for a moment, I felt like that scared, grieving girl at the funeral gates again. But this time, I wasn't alone. I wasn't broken. When Serena emailed me months later, formally through a lawyer, I expected hostility. But her message was short. "I heard about the Harrison Initiative. If you're ever open to it, I'd like to make a donation in Jonathan's name." Quietly. No credit needed. I stared at the screen for a long while. Then I typed, "Thank you." I think he would have liked that. Some wounds don't need revenge. Some wounds just need light and time. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do isn't forgiveness. It's choosing not to pass on the hurt. It was almost a year since the funeral. A year since I stood outside the gates, uninvited. A year since Serena dropped the glass in her hand. A year since I sat in my car, soaked and broken, thinking I had no place left. Now, I stood on stage at a tech summit in San Diego, presenting the results of a global innovation grant I had launched 6 months prior, fully funded by the Harrison estate. My heart still thudded when I looked out at the crowds. But this time, I didn't feel like an outsider trying to prove something. I felt like someone who belonged. After the applause faded and the flashbulb stopped, I stepped off stage and headed backstage to catch my breath. That's when I saw Damien. Yes, that Damien. Serena's eldest son, my stepbrother. He looked different. Less smug, more human. "You've come a long way," he said, nodding towards the curtain. "You handled all that like a pro." I crossed my arms. "Didn't expect you here. Or that." He shrugged. "I came to see what all the fuss was about. Thought maybe you were still the angry, rejected girl with something to prove." He paused, hands in his pockets. "Turns out you're not angry. And you don't have anything to prove." I tilted my head slightly, a silent question. "What do you want, Damien?" He exhaled, looked down at his shoes, then back at me. "An apology." The word hung in the air, surprising me. He didn't wait for a response. "I was cruel to you mostly because I hated how he looked at you like you were actually his daughter. I was jealous and spoiled and wrong." He looked me directly in the eyes. "I'm not asking for anything, just wanted you to know. I see it now." I didn't speak for a long moment. Then, I said softly, "Thank you. I hope you find something that makes you proud of who you are too." He gave a small, genuine smile and walked away. That night, I sat alone in my hotel suite, watching the city lights flicker outside. I thought about the word legacy. It wasn't about money or property or companies. It was about what you leave behind inside people. My dad didn't just leave me his estate. He left me courage, instinct, compassion, and resilience I didn't know I had until I needed them most. A few months later, I received an email from a school in a small Midwestern town. One of the girls in our scholarship program had just been accepted to MIT. The first in her family to finish high school, the first to leave her county, the first to dream big. She wrote, "Thank you for seeing someone like me. No one ever has before." It was like reading my own younger voice. One afternoon, I returned to the lake house. It hadn't changed much. Quiet water, faded deck chairs, the same swing Dad hung from that big oak tree when I was 10. I brought a journal with me. I opened it and started writing. Not business plans, not strategies, but a letter to him. "Dad," I wrote, "I thought winning would feel louder, sharper, but it feels gentle, like you were right behind me the whole time. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for not needing blood to choose me. I hope you're proud of what I'm building. I hope you're watching as I pass it on. You always said I was your best investment. I just wanted to tell you, I've finally started to believe that too." Before I left the lake house, I placed the letter inside a mason jar and buried it beneath the oak tree roots. Not because he was there, but because a part of me always would be. 1 year later, I walked into a quiet community center in Brooklyn. We were opening the first Harrison Learning Hub, a free tech and mentorship space for girls from underserved areas. No press, no ribbon-cutting ceremony, just real smiles, real stories, and real change. A little girl with curly hair tugged on my sleeve. "Are you famous?" she asked. I knelt down. "No, but someone believed in me once. Now it's my turn to believe in you." She beamed, her eyes full of dreams. That was enough. Serena sent a short message weeks later. I saw the news. "The center looks beautiful. Jonathan would be proud." This time, there was no bitterness, no denial, just quiet peace. I replied with 2 words. "Thank you." On what would have been Dad's birthday, I stood by the lake again. Same swing, same silence. I didn't cry. I smiled. Because in a world that tried to erase me, I didn't fight back with anger. I built something louder than revenge. I built a life he'd be proud of. And that was the real inheritance.